we're going to be drawing some really beautiful dandelion flowers. There's a few things that we're going to need for our exercise. First thing that we will need is a piece of paper, and the best thing is actually watercolor paper, because we'll be using watercolor paints, and watercolor paper is designed so that it absorbs the paper and it really interacts well with the paper. If you use just sketch paper or printer paper, it's certainly possible, and if it's all you've got, that's totally okay. But if you have a piece of watercolor paper, then that's even better. We're going to be using a brush. I like to use kind of a big brush with a pointy tip so that it holds a lot of water, because I love using a lot of water for my paintings. But if you just have a small brush, then again, that's totally okay. You know, I have one rule about art. Like, my rule number one is there are no rules, meaning that you just work with whatever you've got. So if you don't have like all the art supplies, then that is okay. You can substitute things. Doesn't really matter. Art's art. We will also be using a white crayon if you've got that. Now, I know not all kids have this around, so if you don't have a white crayon, you can also work with, for instance, a little candle. If you have like a birthday candle from maybe your last birthday, from a birthday cake, you can totally use that. What we're looking for is something that's kind of waxy, because the great thing about wax, and crayons are made from wax, is it repels water. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing with this, and then when we add the watercolor, it's going to repel the watercolor, and it will be like a super cool effect. Then we need a marker. I just use this one, but you can use like a Sharpie marker or any just black marker. A pencil, of course, always needs a pencil. Paints. So you can use like a set of pans if you have that. That is fabulous. If you don't, and you just have like tubes, you know, these are like three colors that are really great to use: the blue, the red, and the yellow. And then what we need is a cup or a bowl or a jar of water. I like using tons of like clean water for my watercolors, and that's why I like using a big cup, so the water doesn't get dirty so quickly. And the last thing is tissues, because I like to use tissues to take the excess water out of my brush. So we're going to start by something that's actually pretty important. We're going to grab our marker, and we're going to start by drawing vertical lines. And I'm just going to start drawing lines, and what these lines will eventually be is they will be the stems of dandelions. It's actually kind of cool if they are different lengths, or maybe like maybe one of them is curved one way and the other one is curved the other way. So just follow along, take your Sharpie and start drawing these black lines all the way from the bottom of the sheet roughly to halfway up the paper. But again, we can also make, here's a few kind of shorter ones, you know, here's a longer one. It's sort of cool looking if they're all different lengths. We can also make some that are a little bit further apart, and one that's a little bit longer again. So now we're going to go to the next step, and for the next step we need our pencil. So grab your pencils, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually draw circles at the very end of the lines. And I told you before that we were going to be making this entirely out of lines. And of course a circle is kind of a line, right? A circle is just a line where the ends are meeting, but circle's also a shape. But since we'll be doing them in pencil, and since we'll be covering it with watercolor, the line will really fade. And when the work is finished, you won't really be able to see the pencil lines. But what they are here for is they are our guides. It's a really great idea when you're drawing, when you're planning out your drawing, is to use a pencil line to kind of draw out or plan out what you plan to draw. Because the great thing about pencil is that you can still erase it. So when everyone has drawn all their circles on top of their stems, we're going to grab our marker again. So grab your Sharpie. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start making all these like tiny little lines all over the pencil circles. So I'm going to give a little bit of a close-up. Here, you see what I've done? I've just basically added all of these little lines all around the circle. And what that is, it's like, for those of you who know what dandelions look like, they're kind of fuzzy, right? They're like fuzzy flowers, which is why I love them so much, because they're so cool and unique looking. We don't usually see flowers that are fuzzy. You know, we know animals that are fuzzy or pets that are fuzzy, but you know, flowers are not usually fuzzy, which is why I think these flowers are so incredibly cool. They have such a cool look to them. And it's also really, really awesome to see when they get blown by the wind, or when you blow on them, how their seeds just like start floating all over the place. I think it's magic. You know, one of the reasons I love art so much is because it's in many ways kind of like magic. You magically make all these like really beautiful scenes appear, but nature is also pretty magical. So just keep on making them until you have covered every single one of your pencil circles with these lines. All right, so we're ready to go on to the next phase. But what we're actually going to do first, before we add the water to it, is that's how when we apply the wax. So grab your white crayon, and the wax in the crayon is actually going to repel the water. So before we add the water, we want to add crayon to our beautiful painting. So what I'd like for you to do is just grab your crayon and trace the stems that you've done. And then once you've traced the stem, I want you to color in the top, the ball on the top of the stem. And I want you to do that to every single dandelion. So here we're tracing the stem and we're filling in the circle at the top. We're tracing the stem and then filling in the circle at the top. And we just keep repeating for every single dandelion on the page. And the reason we do that is we're gonna make some magic with this. So now finally, we're going to add water to our sheet. So what I like to do is, before we add the paint, I'm going to really wet my paper. Because if I just apply the watercolor directly to the page, then the colors are going to be much more vibrant, much darker. But if I add a layer of water to my page first, then the colors are going to bleed more, and they're going to be all beautiful and trippy, and they're going to be drippy, and I really like that effect. So now I'm going to take my color, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the lightest color, because I like doing that with watercolor, because the colors are so transparent. And I'm going to take the yellow color, and I'm just basically going to pull a stripe across. Because remember, we were going to make this artwork just using lines. So I'm going to pull a yellow line across the page, and then I'm going to pull a second yellow line across the page, roughly in the middle. Then I'm going to rinse out my brush, because between different colors in watercolor, you really want to rinse out your brush. And then I'm going to go to my second color, which is red. And between the two yellow lines, I'm going to drag the red color, red line. There we go. And above the second line, I'm going to do a second red line. So now I'm going to clean my brush again with my clean water. I'm going to dip it into the blue paint. And then I'm going to add the blue paint in between the other colors. So once all these colors start like mixing together and start like really becoming beautiful and drippy, it will resemble maybe like a beautiful sky at dusk or a dawn, you know, when at the end of the day, when you see these beautiful colors in the sky. And if your colors aren't quite really mixing together, like as you see at the bottom of the page, they're mixing together well, the top, you can just like make your brush a little bit wet and just help them along a little bit. Just add with your paintbrush, you know, just kind of add a little bit of water between them, and that's how the magic works. Now, the thing with watercolor is that you have to let it dry. You have to lay it flat, first of all. It's not like acrylics where you can put it upright because the paint will stay where it is. Watercolor, because it's so drippy. So it's best to just like leave it on a flat table, just like this, and let it dry for a little bit. You can already begin to see how any place you've added the crayon is repelling the water. So you see this really cool white effect. I'm actually going to show you this one, which has dried. So the colors have kind of bled into each other, and they also become a little bit lighter with watercolor. You see that here it's still pretty dark, but as the colors dry up, they become a little bit lighter. Watercolors really lighten up, and I like that look, actually. I think that makes it look really nice and impressive and beautiful, and that's one of the things I love about watercolor. So what I want you to do now, I'm going to ask you to add some names to this, because making art is a really great way to tell the people that we're missing right now in our lives, that we are missing them. And so what I would love for you to do is, like I've done in this particular version of this project, I would love for you to draw little dandelion seeds like I've done here. And I'm going to zoom in on one so you can like see how it's done. So a dandelion seed is really just like a curved line with a little umbrella at the top and a little seed at the bottom. But wait till it's dry, because if you still do this while it's wet, then there's a chance that the marker will bleed into the watercolors. But I'd love for you to just take the marker and add a few seeds, and then just write down the names of the people in your life that maybe you're missing right now. Like I miss my mom and my dad because they're far away. Maybe you're missing a teacher. Maybe you're missing friends. Maybe you're missing, you know, grandparents or a cousin. Just think of who you're missing and just write their names along with the dandelion seeds. And then what I would love for you to do to take a picture of the work, and if you send it to the people whose names you've written down, you know, maybe just ask your caregiver or your parents to take a picture and to email it to them or to text it to them, then that's another way to be kind of blowing them a kiss, to be letting them know that you miss them. So that wraps it up.
Now, if you like that video, make sure you hit the like button to help us grow the YouTube channel, and hit the subscribe button to make sure that you get notified for future videos. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.